How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another installment of Tech Support Thursday. And I do apologize about being so, not consistent with this. It's just I've been really busy with work lately, and it's the summertime, so I have been not around the computer very much. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to try to catch up with the recent comments and stuff like that. For a little while there, I wasn't getting a lot of comments on any of the videos on the channel, so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, there's no comments, there's really no point of a Tech Support Thursday video, and I noticed it's Friday going into the afternoon, so I wanted to bang one out real quick. So I figured I'd go back a couple of weeks and go from 28 and do like 29 and 30 or 31, whatever, however many I've missed, I don't really remember. So the first comment here is, hi Rob, just wanted to set up a lab for SD-WAN, want to try VMware Workstation, thought of buying license, do you have any code, coupon kind of, so that I can get a discount? So what you can do whenever it comes to VMware products is you can go through VMUG, get the Advantage membership. It's $200 a year, and it gives you access to something like 20 different VMware products. And some of those are nested. Like the vRealize suite is like 3 or 4 products or something like that. So that's what I would do. Go to Google VMUG Advantage membership, pay the $200, and then you'll get access to all that type of stuff, VMware Workstation included. I would recommend not doing it in Workstation though. If you have the ability of deploying ESXi and putting it into Eve, I highly recommend going that route. But I know not everybody can do that. But that's I've kind of gone through all the different iterations of lab. Sort of looking for lab evolution. So do what you can do with what you've got. If you can't afford to, you don't have the space for it, or whatever the reason is your reason, and you don't have to justify it to me. But that's basically where it comes into play. I got a couple of thanks posts in here, so I do appreciate that. And then a kind of a funny comment here. So yes, always go to a testing center. This was my when I took the Service Provider Core exam. I ended up taking it at home, and I passed, but it was one of those situations where I ran into nothing but problems with the thing. I had to sit in line for like 2 hours or whatever it was. So yeah, follow-on tests that I've taken. So I took the VCAP network virtualization and SX exam in person at the testing center here in town. I actually really need to get going on that, and I started going through 4.1 is out now. I wanted to go through, and I've actually got a lab sort of built, but with work, I got assigned to a very, very large project, which takes a lot of time. There's a lot of discovery. It's a sort of an assessment, the discovery, assessment, and routing simplification project for a very, very large customer, and I've been buried in that. So and it's the summertime, so it's still nice out. I think it's almost 80 degrees out right now, and so once my day ends, I get out of the office and I go do stuff outside. I spend as much time outside as I can because I live in the upper Midwest. So once the end of September comes around, October, Halloween time, it gets cold here. So which I'm actually not a big fan of. I cannot wait until my kids are done with school so I can move south. I really want to take advantage of the weather. So anyway. My goal is once the temperature starts to go drop, my plan is to spend more time going through and creating content during the winter. So at least that's my plan. Take advantage of the warm weather while I have it, and so therefore my online presence definitely drops off during the summer. So Yeah, I would definitely recommend. I went off on a tangent there, and I apologize. But I definitely recommend if you have any problems with your exam. One thing that I really like about going to the in-person Pearson View testing centers is that I was taking the VCAP deploy exam, and I think I had 3 hours for the test, and I think I was 90 minutes in. I had to go pee. So I asked the proctor, and I know them all personally because I've gone there so many times. They know me by name. I asked him before I started. I was like, "Hey, if I have to go use the restroom, can I get up and walk out and go use the restroom and come back a couple minutes later?" He's like, "Yeah, you just can't pause the time." I'm like, "Perfect." You couldn't do that if you're in person, if you're on the computer. Like you're on camera and you're expected to stay there. And the last time I took the exam, for whatever reason, the audio wasn't working, so they had to call my cell phone, and it was a nightmare. So um, so yeah, I recommend if you can take it in person, take it in person. So unless you're taking an exam which you know you can have knocked out in half an hour, but it's like I would rather drive the 20 minutes to the testing center, take the test there, and drive the 20 minutes back. You know, I'm gone for an hour ish, hour and a half maybe. Take the test, bang it out, get it done. You know, on your way. Um, so thank you for the exam review. I'm sure lots of change since, but hoping to pass SP core before the lab blueprint change. Excuse me. So one thing that I will mention about um, when it comes to the exams for the core, and I would assume Cisco is doing this across the board for all the core exams for the different tracks that are out there: DC core, SP core, collaboration core, you know, security core. What I would assume that they're doing for all of them, because I've only taken one core exam, and that's the service provider core. And truth, 100% honesty here with the reason I went service provider versus not taking the enterprise core is because I didn't want to spend the time to learn wireless. I didn't want to spend the time to learn DNA center. Those are the straight up reasons why I didn't spend, you know, the additional time. I had the time. Um, I still had plenty of. I think I had 6 months before my recertification was due, but I decided, you know, no, I'm not going to waste my time digging into learning a bunch of wireless that I really like. Learning something I don't know that much about from the get go means you're learning it for the first time, which means it's going to take longer to learn it the first time than it will to go back through a refresher. And you know, it might take me 3 months to learn all the wireless and 3 months to learn all the DNA. I didn't have that kind of time. So um, that's one of those things where it's like I didn't really need to spend any time in those areas for service provider, and I felt like I knew the SP track well enough where I could, you know, I might not be so great in the automation pieces of it, like network services orchestrator or you know stuff like that, where I could be like, you know what, I have a feeling that I might just squeak by. A pass is a pass, right? You know, I don't care. Like, let's say the score is an 825, and I score an 825. I just needed to pass the thing. I don't remember what I got, but I know I was above the passing score. So yeah, if I do know that the exam when I was in the SP core exam, I think it was four separate exams, or I'm sorry, four separate questions where you actually had to lab something up, where you had to configure something. And they made it CCNP centric, meaning they told you to configure XYZ on these devices and get that working. You know, but they didn't give you a verification output, so it wasn't a CCIE geared question, it was CCNP geared, meaning they tell you what they want you to configure and where they want you to configure it. It was very much a like a method of procedures that you would do for a change window. You're going to tell the customer you're going to configure XYZ on these devices. And so that's essentially the direction you would go. Where CCIE, the question would be worded the opposite. Make this work with these restrictions. And then your expert level understanding would have to help you deduce that you can't use this, this, or this. That's the main difference between a CCNP worded question and a CCIE worded question. So, in case anybody was curious to see what that would look like, and if anybody would like, I'm kicking around the idea of doing another enterprise lab, um, a more heavily worded question, but that's you know help you guys prepare for the like how they would write questions and stuff like that. I would be kind of kicking around the idea of doing something like that. So another one here is I'm watching this playlist now. You posted this video about 4 years ago. It's still useful. So yeah, he's talking about the security when I was going through trying to do CCNP security, um, with the intention of going after my IE and security. Obviously, that tapered off after a while, but it's one of those things where, as you're going through the process, you've, in my opinion, with the way that they've got the exams geared now, they have the core exam and all these concentration exams that go along with it. Where if you want to go after the IE in that particular track, you're very well suited to take a CCNP level deep dive into each one of those technology areas. So the core plus all the concentrations to help you answer all the any concentration topics that will be on the core exam, and then take the individual concentrations after that because they'll dive a little bit deeper than what the core does, and then from there you'll be able to go. You'll be pretty well versed for the CCIE. So that's what I would go forward and do. If I had to go do it again, that's what I would do. Fortunately, as I was asked this question the other day by a junior colleague, and they said, if you had to start all over again, how would you go about doing it? And I said, do I retain the information I have, knowledge I have today, or do I have to start over from scratch, knowing nothing at all at my age now, which I started in IT 14 years ago, so it's like, do I have to erase that 14 years of knowledge? Because if I do, that's going to suck. And I probably would not be diving into IT. I probably would be going a different direction. Because it's like, starting off at this point in time in my life, it would be, actually, it probably wouldn't be as bad because my kids are a lot older. And I wouldn't have the responsibility of raising younger kids. Because you got to figure 10 years ago, my oldest was 11, 10, and my youngest would be 4. So they're 6 years apart. So it would have been more. It was more challenging then because they were still pretty young, but they've been able to reap the benefits of their dad working in IT. Another question that was posted from a video I did where Cisco AnyConnect to using Cisco AnyConnect to RDP over a VPN, and it says I set the ASA 5515. AnyConnect VPN user can ping the inside interface of the ASA and inside resources as well, but they are unable to establish RDP to the inside server or PC. Do you have any idea about that? And it could be a couple of different things. I would how far away. They can ping to it, but it's probably a reverse. It could be a reverse route injection issue, RRI, where they're not. That propagation isn't happening. Well, actually, no, I take that back. They can ping. VPN user can ping the inside of the ASA, which I don't think they should be able to do that because trying to think back. As far as I can remember, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like if you're on the outside, if you're at your house and you've got an AnyConnect VPN session set up to a corporate HQ or wherever the VPN gateway is for your ASA, you shouldn't be able to ping the inside interface through the VPN. At least I've never been able to do that, and I've never had a use case for it. So, and inside resources as well, but they aren't able to establish RDP to the inside server or PC. So, okay, actually, now I'm thinking about it for a second. Is RDP enabled? Can you, if you've got a server and a PC on the inside of the network, can you go to the PC and RDP to the server? If that's a check, and vice versa, if you can RDP both ways, then from there I would be checking do you have a NAT rule maybe, or do you have a it's hard to say. There's too many unknowns for and how far behind the ASA are your devices? Are they directly wired to it where the ASA is the gateway of those subnets, or are they buried further in the network where you got a firewall, then behind the firewall there are routers, and behind the routers there are switches, and then behind the switches there are more firewalls, or maybe that's the end of the network. There's some questions that I would have on trying to answer that one, but legit question, something to try to troubleshoot. Setting up the ASA, I get a lot of comments on these. Apparently that was kind of a cool process that I went through in setting up the initial config. So on Nexus Dashboard 12, testing out service insertion doesn't work. And I was very clear when I recorded this video that it was one of those things that was a spur of the moment. Let me go ahead and try to see if this will work and get it operational and just kind of go through the steps. I did. I was able to get all the individual components to work, but the policy routing that connect the PBR you would use to do that wasn't working. So awesome, such a great effort, Rob. What is the best way to revert the changes from the dashboard? I find it difficult to revert changes after a few failed deployments. Oh, okay, failed. Yeah, I thought he was like. So the answer to your question is it's the steps that you went into input are going to be the exact opposite to remove. So if you, for example, created a VRF at the fabric level of Nexus Dashboard, and then you did a quick attach to all the switches that are attached to that fabric, and then once they're attached, then you did a deploy. You would do the opposite process. You would go through and you would do a quick detach to detach them, and then you would deploy so it would remove the config. Because it's unlike you going into the CLI on the Nexus 9Ks or the Nexus 3Ks or whatever platform you're switch platform you're working with inside a dashboard. Where if you're creating a VRF and you've got all the config for that built out, and your CLI copy paste into the config, or the config into the CLI, that's a different process than from dashboard. Dashboard uses profiles in profile application to applying the profile for the config. So it's sort of similar to the way ACI, the APIC, does it to the ACI fabric. Similar, but not exactly the same. So those are just one of those things where you have to keep that in mind. So whatever step you use to deploy it to the switch, you have to do the opposite way to remove it from it. So you got a quick attach to send it to the switches, and you got a quick detach to remove it. The same thing for networks. Very similar process. Well, interfaces are a little bit different because you're going down to the individual switch layer, and you have to create the VRF first. Well, best practice de facto standard says VRF first because that's your routing table. Then you create networks inside your routing table, and then from there you go through and you'd be able to map. Once the networks have been created, the VLANs are there. Therefore, you'd be able to go underneath your interfaces, whether it's an access port, a trunk port, or a VPC or a port channel, and you'd be able to configure all those details accordingly. So I got somebody apparently liked this video. San Diego Sales Academy. Okay. I'm a salesperson and I am primarily interested in what can it do as opposed to how and why it does it. Very good real life pragmatic material. Thank you. You're welcome. Hopefully that was useful to you. So it's interesting that I get a lot of really good feedback when it comes to content that I did around service provider and MPLS VPNs. It was one of those things where I wanted to, I'd spent a lot of time deep diving into it, so I knew it really, really well. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And there's a reason why I haven't gone back through and done an update to service provider, because I just haven't spent the time into it. It's like I'm going in other directions with work and with stuff like that. So it's definitely makes it it's more difficult to cover content that you're not engrossed in on a regular basis. Hello, Rob. I was wondering what SSH session manager you are using. Great video. That would be Secure CRT, and it's not SSH. I just I use whatever the Windows package or whatever it is that EVNG came out with, where it'll modify the registry settings for Chrome. That's the browser that I use for Chrome, where it'll let me go to my device and then click on it and it'll launch Secure CRT for me. So that's essentially what I do. So I'll give you a quick example of what I mean. So if I come over here and 5.1.107, go ahead and log into this guy real quick. This is a test lab environment for some production stuff. So I don't have Secure CRT. Oh, actually, I do have it open at the moment. So let me go ahead and close this out. It's actually for this one. So I'm going to close this guy out. Yep, I'll click on CSR22. It'll ask me if I want to open Secure CRT, and then after a couple seconds, Secure CRT will open up, and then I'll have access to the router. So that's essentially all I do. But there's an SSH, there's like a registry key in Windows that it'll update. Hey man, thanks for all you do. You're amazing. Appreciate that. These are great videos. Thank you for making them. The Enterprise Lab for MPLS VPN. Hi Rob, quick question. If I want to set this exact lab EVE-NG, what are my CPU and RAM requirements? So for Enterprise, it wasn't terrible. Something in the neighborhood of, I'm trying to think back of how much it used and which server that was on. You're going to need about, 1 second, let me, this is one of my ESXi hosts. This is my only ESXi host that I have right now. This is on the C240 M5. So if I was you, and this has got 44 CPUs, Intel Gold 6152 at 2.1 gigahertz, so it's kind of beefy, and 380 gigs of RAM. So came with 128. I added 256 to it. If your capacity is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 gigs, 40 gigahertz of compute, and you've got 128 gigs of RAM, you should have no problem at all running this topology, at all. And that's basically what I did. I mean, your CPU is going to be kind of high, probably 70-80%, but at least you'll be able to run the topology and all that good stuff that goes along with it. So there's that. Hi Rob, I'm looking at doing the VCAP NV deploy exam. I ran into an issue using a 2650 processor not support large log files for the NSX Edge. Long story short, I need a new box. Have you any recommendation? Yes, I do. So I'm actually kind of glad that I came across that question, or the question was asked. So interesting thing about how that works. One of the things that I discovered when I was with ESXi 8 and NSX 4, it became obvious to me that I needed to go through and do some, I needed to buy a server that would allow me to work through ESXi 8, vCenter 8, NSX 4, all that good stuff. So when I was doing the research and looking at the interoperability guide on VMware's website, that's when I came across, I actually went to the hardware compatibility guide, and what I did was I plugged in there, I was like, I want to know what server models support ESXi 8. And then it's, obviously 7.0, 7.0 update 1, 2, 3, etc. And this was the model of CPU that was 6100 is what it told me. So it was something like, was it silver something, bronze something, it's so on and so forth. But so what I did was I went onto eBay and I started researching servers that would give me what I'm looking for. And so I understood how 44 and 2.1 gigahertz, if you multiply 44 times 2.1, you end up getting this number right here, roughly. So that's where that came into play. And what was needed was that, because if you could get 8.0, no, it was 7. It was 7.0 on older model CPUs, as long as you ran the allow legacy CPUs, but certain things wouldn't work. So it was one of those things where, to future-proof myself for at least a couple of years down the road, I went out and I did a lot of research to figure out what CPU I would need in order for this to work. This is the big thing right here. RAM is kind of irrelevant. To a certain extent, so is the storage controller for doing whatever you're going to be doing. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be necessary. So what I did was, doing that research, I found out Gold 6152 was the CPU type that I ended up getting, or CPU model. And then once I found that out, I was like, okay. So I think this server with 128 gigs of RAM, with no hard drive. I had to buy the hard drive with, I think, which is another $100. Server, I think, was 12 or 1300, and then the hard drive. What did I put in here? I think it was a Western Digital Black? Was it Western Digital Red? One of the two. Is it going to tell me? No, it's not going to tell me. Anyway, it's a Western Digital 8 terabyte drive is what this guy is, and there's with provisioning and stuff like that, and then I have my QNAP storage appliance doing iSCSI, and which gives me basically 10 terabytes of storage. Way more than I need. I don't even come even close to it. I'm like, here I'm using a terabyte and a half of storage because I got a lot of big heavy storage running for iSCSI, because I'm running iSCSI inside of the lab for testing and stuff like that. So I need to take this a little bit further than what it already has. So there's that piece. But that's essentially what you would need if you're going to go anywhere. If you're going to commit to it and you're going to download and install ESXi 8, then that's what I did, because eventually what I wanted to be able to do was run ESXi 8 VMs inside of here. Like, I wanted to upgrade my lab, the NSX lab. I wanted to upgrade to vCenter 8, ESXi 8, run NSX4, get all that stuff going. Because now that I've passed the VCAP design and VCAP deploy, what I have to go back and do now is go take the VCP 2023 so that I can upgrade and get my a VCIX and NV. I just haven't had time to do it. I really need to buckle down and get that done, but just priorities, right? It's summertime. I don't want to be spending all my time in front of the computer. So there's that. That's what I would need. That's what I would recommend to you is, and I'll go ahead and I will grab this information right there. See if it'll copy over. I'm not sure. Aha. There. Can't say I never reply to my comments. Anyway, so nice vid. Which switch model you're using? So for this one here, I was using two different ones. 15.2, so the iOS VL2 image from CML, and then the Nexus 9K 9.3 10. So that's that. So there was another comment that says, could I ask for 15 minutes of your time to look over my setup? I cannot for the life of me figure out what I'm doing wrong. I have NSX 4.1 deployed on my vCenter cluster following the official VMware guide, and I am not getting any communication between VMs on the same segment. So when I saw this, it's like, okay, well, transport zones, TEP communication, and if you happen to have NSX edges deployed, make sure that there's mapping. Those transport zones are mapped to that edge as well. So that is essentially what you need to be aware of. So haven't gotten any responses back, but that's essentially what you would need to start digging into. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this video. Half an hour in, and we're good to go. I'm going to get this video posted as soon as I can. If you haven't already done so, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next video. Have a good one, guys.